Have you ever experienced this sudden, completely unexplained wave of physical calm? Maybe it started right at the top of your head and just kind of gently rolled down your spine. Left you feeling deeply relaxed or even sleepy, right in the middle of a totally mundane moment. Well, for decades, millions of people had this exact same feeling, but literally zero language to describe it. You probably just thought you were secretly an alien, right? Or maybe you thought you had some really weird, highly specific superpower. Just think about these everyday triggers for a second. A soft voice, someone brushing your hair, a teacher explaining a concept really slowly and quietly, the super precise movements a doctor makes during an eye exam, or honestly, just the sound of flipping a piece of paper. For some of us, simply watching a careful person do a careful task triggers this intense wave of comfort and tingles. But because there was no word for it, this experience stayed entirely private. People would literally type these incredibly awkward, highly specific phrases into search engines at 2 in the morning, just desperately wondering, does anybody else in the world actually feel this?
Welcome to today's explainer of our source material, where we're going to be tracing the absolutely fascinating history of ASMR. We're going to explore how an isolated, completely unnamed quirk transformed into a massive, scientifically studied wellness tool. More specifically, we'll dive into how YouTube didn't just give this feeling a home, it completely shifted the paradigm. It moved ASMR from being this bizarre cultural internet trend right into mainstream sleep and wellness conversations.
So, to make sense of all this, we're going to follow a clear 3-part roadmap today. First, we'll look at the unnamed era, then the community and YouTube era, and finally, we'll wrap up with the science era. All right, let's jump in. Part 1, the unnamed era, a private sensation. So flashback to 2009. Long before the highly polished videos and the mainstream media coverage we see today, these anonymous forum posts started popping up. Just people trying their best to describe this weird tingling sensation. Now, these early posts are basically internet folklore at this point because they captured something millions of people recognized instantly. But they had a pretty big problem. The old language around tingles often made the whole thing sound inappropriate or even purely sexual, which, for the vast majority of people, it definitely wasn't. That was a massive roadblock. So right around 2010, the community just fixed it. They coined the term Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, or ASMR. It sounds super clinical, right? Like it was cooked up in a laboratory somewhere. But that was exactly the point. It was a deliberately neutral label created by the community. It finally gave people a legitimate, safe way to say, hey, this thing happens to me, without making the entire conversation embarrassing.
Which brings us to part 2, the community and YouTube era. Organizing the Tingles.
That newfound legitimacy, it absolutely sparked a revolution. See, before YouTube, experiencing ASMR was entirely accidental. You literally just had to cross your fingers and hope you'd get lucky at a hair salon or, sitting in a quiet doctor's waiting room. But YouTube changed the game. It allowed creators to intentionally design media specifically for this feeling. They started establishing these highly repeatable formats, things like whispering, tapping, brushing, and personal attention roleplays. Suddenly, you weren't waiting around for some real-world coincidence anymore. Viewers had on-demand access to relaxation whenever they needed it.
And this right here marks the most crucial shift in our whole story. YouTube didn't just give ASMR a visual format, it single-handedly dragged it out of niche internet culture and squarely into the wellness conversation. People shifted from just chasing these tingles for entertainment to actively using these videos to fall asleep. They were using them to calm down from panic attacks or to manage their stress through dedicated nightly routines. By the time viewers started really connecting in the comment sections, sharing how these videos helped them finally get some rest when literally nothing else worked, ASMR had already become this massive digital wellness tool. And this was way before the medical world even knew what it was.
And the sheer scale of this movement, it's almost hard to wrap your head around. To put it into perspective, today, ASMR content reaches up to 500 million monthly viewers, 500 million. That staggering number proves this was never just some fleeting internet joke. It was a massive, desperately unmet need for accessible sleep support.
Moving on to part 3, the science era. From internet curiosity to measurable physiology.
Okay, so with 500 million people tuning in, science literally could not ignore this anymore. The scientific community essentially had to play catch-up to the wellness routines that millions were already using every single night. Just 5 years after the community came up with the term in 2010, researchers Barratt and Davis published the very first major peer-reviewed ASMR study in the journal PeerJ. They officially documented what the community already knew. People were using this for relaxation and sleep. This paper was a huge milestone because it finally treated ASMR not as some weird internet joke, but as a real, documented experience that was actually worthy of rigorous study.
After that, the research just took off. By 2017, scientists were actually finding measurable, resting state brain network differences in people who experience ASMR. But the real game changer came a year later, with a 2018 study by PeerJ and her team. They discovered that people who respond to ASMR showed an actual physical reduction in their heart rate when watching these videos. This was huge. It firmly moved ASMR out of the realm of subjective internet culture and locked it into verifiable nervous system science. It proved that for the people who respond to it, their bodies are actually physically downshifting in a very significant way.
So, what's actually going on under the hood? Why is it so incredibly effective for sleep? Well, it's likely a really powerful blend of 4 mechanisms all working together. First, you've got sensory attention, which simply draws your focus in. Then, social safety cues. Think of a soft voice or gentle eye contact. These literally tell your primal brain, hey, there's no threat here, you're safe. This naturally leads to affect regulation, which helps balance your mood. And finally, it triggers that autonomic downshifting we just talked about. When you put all 4 of these together, they essentially trick your nervous system into creating the absolute perfect environment for rest.
Now, actually, we do need to pump the brakes for just a second. As exciting as all these findings are, we absolutely have to talk about the medical caveats. The history of ASMR is not the story of some magic cure-all wand. It's just not universal. Some people feel the tingles instantly, others feel super relaxed but get absolutely no tingles at all, and then there are people who actually find the sounds highly irritating. On top of that, the formal research is still pretty young, and we all know that popularity does not automatically equal medical effectiveness. ASMR should definitely be viewed as a fantastic, complementary relaxation tool, but not a replacement for actual professional medical treatment if you're dealing with clinical insomnia, severe anxiety, or trauma.
Which brings us exactly to where ASMR sits today. It's uniquely positioned right at the intersection of culture and health. I mean, what started as a bunch of awkward, anonymous forum posts has broadened into this massive, comprehensive, sound-based tool for digital well-being. Today, you'll see it seriously studied right alongside things like sleep hygiene and stress reduction. And honestly, that is entirely because a community on YouTube demanded a space to relax.
You know, when ASMR finally hit the mainstream, it really risked being oversimplified as just oddly satisfying sounds for the internet generation. But its origin story reminds us of its true power. ASMR wasn't invented by some corporate creators in a studio somewhere. It was discovered by regular people just trying to describe something they'd felt their whole lives in classrooms, libraries, and quiet conversations. YouTube gave it a format, sure, and science gave it credibility. But that shared human experience, that came first. It's not just an internet trend. It is literally millions of people recognizing a feeling they thought they were experiencing completely alone. So, I want to leave you with this question to chew on. Before the internet finally gave it a name, when did you first realize you were experiencing this feeling?